Welcome all the viewers out there to the Arraya Solutions Vodcast. As in previous topics, we've assembled a group of leading experts in their field, and for today's discussion, we're actually going to do an extension of a previous vodcast, a hybrid cloud journey, and we focused that one on challenges and solutions when it comes to hybrid cloud. And today, our topic is going to be focused around how the modern data center conversation has changed. What works, what doesn't, what are we seeing, what are we not seeing. Today's panel consists of my group, a group of my peers over at Arraya, all of whom work within the data center and cloud space. As a reminder, I'm Chuck Kiessling, the Senior Director of Infrastructure Pre-Sales at Arraya, and I'm actually going to participate a little bit as a panelist today, which is unusual. Back in the studio, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Ron Longley, the Director of our data center practice, and back with us, a man that needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway, Gary Funt, a Senior Director, or Senior Cloud Solutions Architect. Thanks for joining, guys. Gary, sorry I botched up your title there.
That's okay. I'll take a director title. That's fine.
Well, tell you what, why don't we kind of jump in initially, Ron? And I'm going to throw this question to you just because I've heard it a few times. How much in your conversations are currently focused around, I only want data center, I don't want anything to do with the cloud?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it changes week by week and month by month. You asked me 6 months ago, it might have been different, but yeah, some conversations are more transactional. Hey, I still have a workload in the data center. I might need another server. I might need some more disks or some more memory, or replace my switches, all that good stuff. But the more strategic discussions where, hey, greenfield data center opportunity or data center refresh or, a hybrid cloud journey conversation, right? How much of that is just a purely, on-prem or within a colo data center discussion? Without a cloud piece to it, is probably 25% or less. So, and it, maybe that's a plateau where we'll sit at for a while, but it's shrunk considerably over the last several years, and that's kind of where we're at today.
That's actually, kind of an interesting perspective. So let me kind of flip that exact same question on its head. And Gary, you focus on cloud, right? What percentage of your conversations say, I don't want anything to do with the data center anymore, just stick me in the cloud?
It's very, very minimal. As Ron said, I mean, there's always adoption happening, and it's always changing, right? I would say around that 25% range again. We have those cloud first, mentality customers who are all about adoption of the cloud. So and you still have some legacy customers that have that hardware, have that colo, whether it's, security requirements or it's just their practice to do that. And it's not like the cloud's new, right? It's been around for 15 years, and it's definitely progressed from when its first rendition came out. But we still have a lot of hybrid conversations.
So let me actually ask you a quick question based on just something that you said, and this is more, let me say, defining, right? You said cloud first, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
When a customer comes to you and says, I am cloud first, what does that actually mean?
To me, when they talk about cloud first, it's two different things. It's one is they're switching their entire way that they think about their production environment or their environment overall. Whether it's they have a current data center, but they want to focus on being cloud first. Cloud first is really saying, okay, we want to put as much in the cloud as we can. We want to take advantage of all those the security features and all the scalability, the cost savings from having all that functionality and automation. With our workloads. So we want to try to get as much into the cloud as we can. We realize there still may be some hybrid mentality there with workloads that are older and aren't able to be run in the cloud. But it's definitely it's an approach we see a lot of customers starting to take, where they are that let's get in the cloud and kind of focus a little bit on our on-prem stuff as it comes up and see where that replatforming has to come in.
Okay. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense in my mind. I think that kind of positions things a little bit more when I'm talking like net new, maybe a full rip and replace of something that I already have existing. I'll toss this question in the middle because I'm going to look for an answer from both of you, but I kind of want to hear from Ron first on this question. So, cloud first versus, I want to move to the cloud. What do you see as the primary workloads that customers are most interested in either dipping their toe in or, ready to go forward with that you have always focused traditionally on prem?
It's a common answer that I always fall back to, but if you look at email, right? Yeah, I'm a former Lotus Notes and former Exchange administrator. I delivered a lot of data center solutions to support Exchange workloads and others, right? Um, anytime we're architecting something, whether it be, within a data center or in a colo, it doesn't include email, right? Because email is just kind of table stakes as a SaaS-based platform offering. Not for everybody, but for most people, so it's really rare. So that one's really a slam dunk. We're hearing a lot of customers that say any other application that can be SaaSified, right? Given over to or moved over to a SaaS provider, where it's their infrastructure, it's their management. I might have to be responsible for the data and the governance and securing it, but it's somebody else's quote unquote problem, and you pay by the drink. Customers are looking to do that, and that makes a ton of sense, right? Get out of the hosting your own application and quote unquote infrastructure business and focus on your business, right? So that really makes a ton of sense. More customers are looking for things like file services, right? We have a big customer right now that's talking to us about, I have dozens of file servers, terabytes and terabytes of data, all disparate, all with their own requirements from a backup and DR and retention point of view. I want that out of my data center. Where does it go? Is it Teams? Is it SharePoint Online? Help me, right? So that's kind of the next piece that I see as kind of a slam dunk. And then for your traditional legacy apps that you for whatever reason need to keep in that legacy mode, again, you want to be cloud first with that. Right, if you're a VMware customer, the VMware Everywhere story for VMware and public cloud, right? Lifting and shifting that, but still having it run on VMware is easy, right? That seems like a natural extension. Or if you just want to run those, say, Windows or Linux virtual machines in native public cloud, that's kind of the next easier step. And if you're going to dip your toe in that area, if you have a test dev environment, that's low impact to move and play in that space, that's kind of a natural, way to dip your toe in.
So over to you, Gary. I mean, are you're kind of the yin to Ron's yang. So do you feel like it's kind of the same thing, right? The things that he feels are part of his traditional conversation that are now being moved, let's say over to you, right? Do you feel like that's similar? Are you seeing anything additional on top of the things that he talked about?
No, I mean, Ron pretty much nailed it 100% right there. I mean, these are all the key conversations that we're having with these customers. And he also, I'm going to have to put a trademark on SaaSify because I think that's a great word.
I think we should get T-shirts.
Yeah, that is the words. I mean, the people, they're aware, right? They're aware of this, of the features. They're aware of, the scalability. And I know I've said it over and over again, but these are all features and benefits that these guys are looking to have.
So that's you actually just said something a couple of times, and I want to pull a little bit of a thread on that one. They're aware, right? I mean, I know you had mentioned the cloud's been around for a while. Now, for me, when I remember the little baby cloud, I remember the traditional things like, yeah, you could throw some servers up here, infrastructure as a service, right? Backup DR soon followed. I've seen some VDI solutions that were here and there around that. But at the end of the day, those have been just that primary focus, right? So what don't people know that exist?
I mean, the cloud has advanced itself so much, and they continue to release new things every day. But both all cloud platforms have that consistent, background where they're bringing more and more services and technologies out. A lot of people don't understand that. Look, even if you have cloud and you have your own prem, you can manage everything from one centralized location, right? There are event services and built in where you can manage your own premise workload. You can have that single pane of glass. You can have that same governance and structure policy across the board. And that's one thing we really have a lot of conversations with when it comes to our customers and their adoption methods is you don't have to segregate the two, right? It's one continuous expansion of your data center. So same security rules apply, same governance rules apply, access methods, all of that can still be the same across the board. And that's something that our cloud OEMs have really focused on. I would say in the last 5 to 6 years, there's been a huge increase in just the management portion alone.
All right. Ron, are there any specific items that the customers are coming to you, and it's along the same lines, that are basically saying, we had no idea there was a cloud option for this? Do you have anything that have become kind of like those aha moments for a customer that you see as relatively new in that space for you?
Yeah. So, customers have different ideas of what cloud is, right? You go back to one of, my favorite classifications of cloud is it's really not a destination, it's an operating model, right? You can truly have a private cloud with automation, right, in your own data center in a colo that somebody else is responsible for. The aha moments are, a lot of the OEMs are positioning their products and solutions as a service, pay as you go, more of an OpEx model than a CapEx model. You can do that at the base level for like storage, or you can do a full stack solution, like a hyper-converged solution with cloud management and lifecycle management and automation. To even further blow your mind, right? Things like solutions like Azure Stack HCI and Hub, right, where extensions of Azure that you could run within your own data center and colo. You might own it outright, but somebody else is managing it and maintaining it. AWS offers like their outposts, right, where they can have an extension of public cloud AWS, on running on hardware within your data center and infrastructure owned and managed by AWS, and VMC has something similar. So some of the other aha moments is, I'm a VMware customer and I've maintained my own VMware environment for years and years now. How do I get in the cloud, right? Well, that same VMware environment could be running on somebody else's hardware, and that somebody else could be one of the major cloud providers, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Google, and others, right? Where it's VMware running on their bare metal, managed and maintained by them, and you layer your applications and workloads on there, and you're responsible from kind of the hardware and the hypervisor up. That's an aha moment, right? Customers still are realizing that. So lots of options there for customers. So, we're in a good spot.
So when we go down that line, right, what I'm getting out of that is there are organizations, and I'll use VMware as an example, right? So VMware at one point drove down the line to kind of have their own cloud service, but now what they're doing is they're partnering up with we'll say the big three, and building out an environment that you can consume in an as a service model that looks, feels, operates, functions, and bills just like a traditional cloud service. What else is doing that? Let me kind of go to Gary. What else do we have that they are partnering up with these cloud providers that are building their own platforms that follow that same mentality?
Kind of caught me off guard with that one. I mean, are you talking as far as like subscription-based models? Because we do see a lot of the customers are moving to that method.
So I guess should we expect to see more OEMs that are following suit with VMware? Because I almost feel like that's a little bit of a pioneer focus in the cloud space, right? Instead of just saying we're going to build something for this, they're saying we're going to build something with you in this. Am I explaining that right?
As far as vendors, yeah, we have a lot of vendors that we currently are using, or our customers are using, that have built that relationship with cloud OEMs, right, and have built their products within that. I mean, you have the marketplace within Azure that has thousands of offerings through these third-party vendors. But yeah, I mean, these vendors, they see the need for that. They see, and they're investing in it. And expands beyond just VMware. Right. There's other solutions around VDI. There's solutions around security, and these are all these third-party vendors that are coming in and building those things inside of Marketplace and making them available for the public.
Okay. Ron, do you see that affecting you in any way moving forward, or do you feel like this is an adoption that customers are finding easier to consume, instead of replace this with insert Microsoft solution here, insert AWS solution there, right? Do you find that this is an easier model for your customers that are looking to move out of the data center, or at least what options do they have out of the data center? Is it something easier for them to consume?
Yeah, and I go back to my last comment of the options, both for partners and customers, to address the challenges of the get out of the data center, or their cloud first or hybrid cloud initiatives are plentiful, right? There's frequently more than one right answer, right? And then it depends on, fit and feel and cost, right? And complexity. All of those things go into the decision-making process, but the beauty of it for all of us is there's more than one right answer, and there's tons of competition. So the price is typically similar across solutions, right? So everybody wins.
And to kind of add on to what Ron just said, it also gives the customer a little bit of comfort, right? Because they're moving to a new platform. It's not something hosted inside their environment, but it's their tools and resources that they're comfortable using, right? We kind of mentioned, VMware. That's a huge learning curve to go from something like VMware to cloud native, and most companies don't have the ability to be able to have their resources tied up with learning new things. So the tie-in of those third-party resources with cloud, platforms is huge, because it lowers the learning curve. It puts them in an environment they're comfortable with, and they've started that cloud adoption. So now, once that adoption process starts, it continues to expand through modernization and everything else with their applications or their workload specific. So I think that it's a huge thing for these vendors to be tied in with that type of cloud platform.
So I feel like we've talked a lot about the infrastructure side of things, right? What are your conversations around something a little more application specific? Are you having, Gary? I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of conversations around application, because people are aware of platform as a service and software as a service, right? They see those things out there. There's so much marketing material out for all those different services, and the approach that we kind of really take with them is like, okay, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're kind of extending this, and we're going to add additional security and additional services on top of something you're already using. So when we talk about modernization of applications, we really focus on a couple things, and one of them being the hardware that's associated with these applications, that three-tier method, right? Rather than replacing all this hardware, if it's something that is compatible to run in a platform or software as a service, that's where the focus should be first, right? With cloud adoption, especially with modernization. And then we move on from there. So there are going to be some applications that are going to need a little more work to get them into a cloud-ready format. But for the most part, most of your customers, at least our customer base, is a lot of Microsoft. So we have a lot of SQL. There are going to be some home-built applications that we have to take a little deeper dive into. But the adoption process for applications has definitely become a lot smoother than it was with the first couple generations of cloud.
I don't want to dive too deep into solutions and challenges, so I'll keep this question a little bit higher level. Like, as the conversation changes, and I feel like it continuously does, at least in my mind. What do you feel like or let me rephrase. How do you, or what concept do you feel has been the most challenging for both of you as architects and the customer as the consumer to really grasp the concept on, or to adopt?
I mean, I kind of spoke to it earlier. It's that learning curve, right? So a lot of customers aren't comfortable with having to relearn that technology. So I would say that would be the number one pushback we get. It's just when it comes to the cloud native stuff, there is a learning curve there.
What about you, Ron?
That's right where I was going. So, if again that the VMware customer, right, that wants to move workloads somewhere else, if there's still a VMware option in a public cloud where it's the same tool set just in somebody's other quote unquote data center, that's a comfort level, right? It's the same tool set, it's what they know and are comfortable with, right? It's when you take those same workloads and instead of lifting and quote unquote lifting and shifting them to a VMware on public cloud solution, you're putting them, as we say, Windows VMs into Azure, right? Does your team know how to manage Azure? Maybe, maybe not, right? Once they land onto the Windows server, yes, Windows Server management is probably natural to them, but navigating Azure, security and networking and VPN and connectivity and hitting a jump box host or a bastion host to get to somewhere else, right? That's an evolution of a learning curve, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, and we see lots of customers being successful doing it, but you take folks out of their comfort zone, there's apprehension and some pain, and they need some support in terms of retooling their skill sets.
Yeah, I would say the next pushback that we really get from a lot of our customers is when it comes to cost management and overall pricing, right? So, and this really does depend on the actual customer, right? If they have that ability to understand those services and features and benefits you're going to get from the cloud, the conversation is a lot easier. If it's someone who's like, oh, well, I already own this hardware, why would I want to just take and put everything in the cloud, right? I own the hardware. Yeah, I got to replace drives every once in a while, but there's no cost benefit for me to move. So that becomes a deeper conversation with them. We have to talk about, where they're gaining some efficiencies when it comes to their employees, right? And so instead of being tied up with hardware replacement or re-imaging machines and stuff like that, we can, put this in the cloud, make it a little more scalable for you, and free up those resources to be able to learn these new technologies and to continue to grow the company.
Okay. So let's do a 180. We've had a lot that we've talked about right now, and there's been a pretty big cloud focus, right? So, data center, Ron, like when we're having those conversations with our traditional data center customers, how do you handle the cloud conversation when you know that they are cloud cautious, cloud adverse, cloud backwards, right? Whatever current coin term for not ready for the cloud that we have of the week. Like, do you have the conversation? Do you just ignore it altogether? Like, where does that fit into the overall conversation for those? I just want to be in the data center for now.
So, you're anybody that's would focus on one area or the other is being short-sighted and has the capability of losing the conversation, right, and losing the opportunity, right? If you're not considering all options, at least early on, right, in a conversation, for example, okay, Mr. Customer, Mr. Mrs. Customer, you have a refresh that's going on. We could easily just, give you the latest technology of what you have in the data center, not even mention cloud, right? Or you treat it, yes, we can do that, but that there are these cloud options that are maybe VMware based or, SaaS offerings or just public cloud offerings. Are you interested in those, right? You have to at least ask the question. But I will say, I'm a big fan of not fighting battles I don't have to, or not pushing the boulder uphill, right? If you have the initial conversation, we looked at cloud, it's not for us for reason XYZ, duly noted. I'm not going to push the issue. Let's focus on your needs, right? And if it's a traditional data center space need, then, well, that's easy. We go down that path and we provide more than one solution in that area.
So let me kind of make an observation, right? And this is just initially throughout the conversation between the two of you. I don't think when we are talking about the data center conversation and how it's changed, I don't think that we're referring to, at least initially, about the technology. I think we're referring more towards education. You have to, Ron, I think you said it best initially. You have to ask the question. And then you have to make sure that the customer understands all of their options. And then once they've decided which options they want to hear about, then those options are presented, a direction is decided upon, and then the solution is architected. I mean, is that about right? Or, I'm probably oversimplifying it, but that's just a general observation. I mean, what do you think of that observation?
I think it's spot on because, really it comes down to, your business, right? And the applications, workload, data, that support the business, right? It's really what it's all about. Those are the pieces that are important, right? Where are they running today? Do you want to keep them running there? What are your gaps in terms of like data protection and disaster recovery and meeting your SLAs, right? If there are gaps, are they better well suited in the cloud, or are there other data center options that we can use to fill that gap? But really, you boil it down to its simplest terms. You don't talk servers or hyperconverged or cloud first. It's really about those applications, the data sets, and the workloads, and you start the conversation there. And yeah, education certainly part of that, but it's part of the natural process.
Yeah, as Ron said earlier, I mean, there's so many different ways to complete the end goal, right? But we have to know what that end goal is, and it really does come down. Solution overall comes down to what are the business needs.
So that's an interesting way to really focus the conversation. So it's really not initially even about the technical needs. It's more about, what do I need as an organization? What am I trying to accomplish? What is my focus? What are my goals? And then from there, branching out into whatever direction we really need to have that conversation. Um, I think, and this is going to be for me, and one of the pieces that I'm going to throw out there. I know for me initially, I've always been kind of like that cloud first person, right? I love new technology. I'm a bleeding edge guy. I'm running Windows 11 right now just because I want to, and I want to see what it is and how it operates and how it looks and feels and all that good stuff. So I'm one of those people. So I've always been kind of like that, yeah, to use your term, Gary, the cloud first. I think initially for me, the biggest struggle was understanding the people that weren't, right. And that was as an architect, right. Obviously I have slightly more responsibilities at this point, but as an architect, my biggest challenge was understanding why people didn't want that. And so that focus that you're talking about is understanding the business challenges, not the technical challenges. I can solve technical challenges all day long with cloud. It doesn't always solve your business challenges, your business needs, your business desires, and regulatory requirements in some scenarios, depending on how you have your applications configured. Not saying that cloud can't meet regulatory requirements, but if you have things configured, it could, punch a hole where you don't want it to, trying to make that connection. But that was my biggest struggle personally, when it came to changing the way that I had the conversation. So now that I've opened up the robe a little bit and exposed where my challenges were. What about you, Gary? Like, what was your biggest challenge when it came to the fact that I feel like the conversation changed and quickly?
Yeah, it's definitely the adoption method. I mean, you spoke to it, and simple analogy: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So I can show you all the benefits, but if it's not the path that you guys want to go, and that's something that, like, excuse me, it's something we continue to deal with. Even with newer customers, right? That have that knowledge of cloud. There's still some things that they're a little stringent on with old school type mentality, and not that physical data center is old school or the wrong way to go. I mean, it is a requirement for a lot of customers.
Original school, original school.
Still, yeah, but yeah, the conversation does get tough when they have that mindset that like, look, I need to be able to control my hardware. I need to be able to control everything with my business. So I would say that would be my biggest pain point when it comes to trying to put solutions together for cloud type resources.
What about you, Ron? When it came to the conversation personally, like what was the struggle for you to change your mindset?
Well, I grew up, my IT career, help desk, workstation support, and then spent a ton of time in the data center, pre-cloud, right? So that's where my roots are, right? And even in my time at Arraya, delivering the data center solutions, they weren't cloud-based at the time. As a pre-sales solutions architect and a practice leader in the data center space that used to be called the storage space, right? So those were just, natural data center areas, right? That's where I came up, where my comfort zone was, right? And we have a lot of OEM relationships too, right? That, selling a lot of servers and hyperconverged and storage and backup solutions that land in people's data centers, right? So those relationships and conversations have had to evolve, right? As kind of opposing forces, right? Don't put that in the cloud, sell this storage array, right? Or sell this hyperconverged solution. And I go back to there's more than one right answer, right? It's what problems are we trying to solve? What's the comfort zone of the customer? What's the right thing to do? Again, more than one right option. So a lot of times there's a private cloud option, there's a hybrid cloud option, and just a public cloud SaaS option, right? There's multiple reasons why one is better than the other, and price being one of them, and fit and features and OEM alignments another, right? So yeah, that's been like the biggest struggle, changing from a data center mindset really to more of a hybrid cloud mindset, just opening up your mind to other options and being able to talk through and present and sell either of them with those opposing forces at play, right?
I mean, honestly, I totally feel like that is the exact issue across the board, right? So for you, it seems like you're a little bit more cautious and have focused on the traditional mindset. So you adjusting your mindset for the newer conversations, and for me, and sounds like Gary is a little similar to that. I am always on fast forward, I feel like sometimes. And so for me, it was trying to change the mindset to focus a little bit more on the cautious side. So I feel like even when we get into these conversations, it's very much focused on the mindset of the person that you're talking to. Understanding what their options are, understanding their perspective, and potentially showing them a different way to think about what they're used to. And you definitely don't want people to feel incredibly uncomfortable with the solution that you're going to put in, because that doesn't help anybody. So I feel like that is actually more or less a similar mindset across the board. Um, so I'll just ask really quick if there are any last second comments. We're coming up on time here, but any last second comments? I will take that silence as a no. So, but unfortunately, like I said, we're at time. It's all the time that we have for today's episode. I can say that, it was definitely a good topic of conversation for us to cover, and I think it's a very, very prominent topic on customers' minds. Um, for all the viewers out there, this is going to be the second of a multiple series around the hybrid cloud journey in various areas that you can focus. So please check back with us for the next few episodes around this topic. And we appreciate everybody stopping by. Don't forget to take a look at previous episodes, as well as the Arraya Insights expert Q&A at arrayasolutions.com and on YouTube. Thanks, and see you next time.